Welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. I hope everyone is doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. All right. We're going to get right on into our program. Our program today is we're going to be based on the information I got when we did a little chat. We were asking people for different topics to cover, and one of the topics was communication. So we're going to be talking about that communication between couples. We're going to be covering all the suggestions that you sent in. If you have not heard your suggestion, just keep listening to the program, and your suggestion will be covered. Today we're going to be talking about communication between married folks or couples, or if you're seeing someone, you need to learn how to communicate before you walk down the aisle, so it won't be an issue when you get married or after you say I do. This is Pastor Larry. I'm coming to you this Wednesday afternoon again. Welcome. All right, we're gonna. I did a little research and I looked up an article on PsychLife, and it says top 10 effective communication techniques for couples. Now, this is an article by a Sylvia Smith. Sylvia Smith wrote this article. We're going to be talking about some of the key points from her article. We're not going to probably not cover all 10 of the items. Let me set my timer here because I don't want to hold you too long. All right, there we go. All right. We're not going to be covering all 10 of them. We're going to cover most of the important things of it. Listening is the key to a successful marriage. Listening is the key to a successful marriage. We said it here on the program several times about communicating, one between two people. And the definition of communication is the imparting or interchange of thoughts, opinions, or information by speech, writing, or signs. So we're going to be talking about communication between married folks because it's so underrated. Listening is very underrated, and a lot of people, a lot of couples end up in divorce because of the lack of communication. Now we should be communicating. Don't try to communicate anything in the middle of an argument. We've said it several times. If you want to discuss a topic with your husband or with your wife, don't do that. Try to bring up things in the middle of an argument. For instance, if you in the middle of an argument and you have a problem with her leaving, let's say she or he or she does not hang their clothes up when they come in, they just leave them laying around or something. And if you're in the middle of an argument about or a discussion about something else, don't bring that up. That's not the time to bring that up. Well, you do this and you do that. You don't want to start doing anything like that, because then things will get escalated. So you have to wait for the proper time to communicate. And we've said it on the program many times. Just because you are telling the truth does not mean that it's the proper time, place, or scene to tell the truth. And the truth is, the thing about the truth, when you tell the truth, it should not hurt, it should help. And if it hurts, then it's something that was used out of place. And a lot of times we try to use the truth in the middle of our trying to communicate with our wives or something. We might use the truth at the wrong time. So you have to be very wise when you speak the truth. If that make any sense to anyone, you have to be wise when you speak the truth, because just because something is the truth, it does not mean that it's the time or place for it to be said. Listening is an underrated quality in most marriages or in any marriage. It's underrated quality. And if you are a good communicator, you are. And the thing about being a good communicator, you have to be a good listener in order to communicate. Now let's see what Sylvia Smith said on her in her article. A lot of things that she talked about were a lot of things that we've covered on the program. Here she says, good communication skills are the key to any successful relationship because relationships are emotional and rely on interpersonal, verbal, and nonverbal exchanges between two people. Most marriages start out with the idea of success, not realizing that the number one cause of divorce is bad communication. We just mentioned that. The number one cause of divorce is bad communication. And and a lot of times in the Christian homes there's a lack of communication because especially if one party if the wife goes to church and the husband doesn't go to church, a lot of times there's communication breakdown there because she don't understand why he don't go to church, and he don't understand why she have to always be at church. But those things should have been again. Those things should have been communicated before you walk down the aisle. Now, if you both were in church at the time you got married, then you make up your mind what church you're going to go to, especially if you both came from different churches. Make sure you agree upon a church to attend together, so that way no one will miss out on being in church. And it's very important that we be in church together as couples. Now, here's number one that she has here. Do not talk at the same time. Listen, we've said that on the program. You cannot communicate if both people are talking at the same time. Because guess what? What you're going to do is try to over talk the other person. And then when you try to over talk the other person, then it's going to escalate and someone is going to get louder and louder and no one is being heard at all. So don't talk at the same time. Listen, let the person have their say so, and the person that's in the middle of their say so, please, this is a very important part of communication, which a lot of people tend to forget. When you're communicating with someone, have your say so and stop. Don't go on and on and on. Because if you go on and on, the other person's going to feel like you leaving them out of the conversation. And by the time you finish talking, they're going to forget what they were, the points, the points that they wanted to bring out. So we have to allow that person. Communication is where you say something and you wait for a response. You can't get a response if you keep going on and on and on and on and on. And they always say, they always say women, they just be going on. A lot of men do the same thing. They just go on and on and on about nothing. So when you're communicating, please communicate what you have to say and then wait for a response. Now, if you don't get a response right away, please don't say, did you hear a word that I just said? Please don't do that, because when you do that, sometimes when you communicate, when in the middle of a conversation, when you're communicating, after you communicate what you say, the person might have to get their thoughts together, and they want to make sure they say the right thing. They want to make sure they use the right words, the right verbiage, the right body language. They want to make sure all that is right before they communicate back. So when you communicate, make sure you communicate. Get to the point. Don't keep going on and on and on, because when you keep going and on, you're going to lose the person. That's the same thing with the minister. When you're in the pulpit, you're communicating with the congregation. And if you go on and on and on and on and on, they are not going to, they're going to lose their train of thought. They're going to not start listening to you. They're going to start looking all everywhere, and their mind is going to drift away. And that's the same thing in a conversation. Get to the point And first of all, before you start communication, if it's something, especially if it's something serious and, you've been having issues with that between you and your wife, or make sure that you gather your thoughts, calm down. Don't start a conversation in the middle of a heated argument. Don't try to start a conversation because it's not going to happen. One person going to start getting louder and louder and louder. Make sure the atmosphere is right, the mood is set, the mode is set, or the mood is set where you can communicate properly. And when you communicate properly, make sure you get your words out, and then you wait for a response from them. If they don't say anything right away, allow them time to get their words together, their wording. They might be trying to get their wording together because they want to make sure they have proper communication. So make sure that we are doing that in our communicating. Think before you speak, or you'll regret what you say. We said that's make sure you get your words together before you start. Don't start talking and just go on and don't just say things off the top of your head, because that can lead to bigger arguments. And when you try to communicate with the financing, hear each other out. Work out something. Compromise. There's nothing wrong with compromising. And in the middle of your conversation, there's nothing wrong with, just because you're right don't mean you have to be right all the time. And just because you're right all the time don't mean you have to say that you're right. Sometimes it's, part of communication is compromising, where you be the first one to say you're sorry, even though you might be right. Just say you're sorry so you can move past that. Because if you don't, then the argument is everything is gonna get escalated. And here's number 3. I like this. Give a hoot. Care. In communication, don't say, I don't care what they say. I'm gonna speak my mind. I'm gonna just give them a piece of my mind. No. Calm down before you start talking, because if not, then you're going to just say anything off the top of your head, and you don't want that. Oh, here's number 4. It's very important, very, very important. No hitting below the belt. Don't bring up something, or don't say something that hurts someone. Don't say something that's going to, for instance, don't say anything that's going to hurt your husband's manhood. You ain't never been no good just like your daddy. You ain't no good just like all the other N words. Don't hit below the belt like that. And fellas, you never good cook. Just like you can't cook like my mama can. No, don't hit below the belt. Make sure you keep everything cordial. Make sure you listen. If you listen, things will turn out better. I guarantee you, when you learn to listen to each other. And just because you're the head of the wife does not mean that your wife thoughts or opinions does not count. Her opinions are very important. And sometimes when you listen to your wife, you can stay out of a lot of mess. And sometimes when you listen to your wife, you can save a lot of money as well. So sometimes we have to listen to our spouses as men. Facts, please. Don't start bringing up stuff that happened. Just stick to what you're talking about. Stick to the conversation. Don't start bringing up stuff from the past, because you should have, based on listening to these programs that we have on here on Let's Talk Marriage, you should have gotten rid of your past. You should have close that that chapter of your life that should be closed. So you should not be bringing up things from the past, because when you start bringing up things from the past, it's going to cause more trauma and more disagreements in the conversation. Participate with sincerity and honesty. Make sure you are listening to your wife. Make sure that what she is saying, that you are listening to it, and have eye contact. Make sure you're listening. If you're not saying anything, make sure you shake your head or say, okay, I understand. Make sure that she knows or he knows that you are listening. It's very important that we learn to communicate in our marriages, because Sometimes it can be hard because you have to figure out how to say what you're going to say without hurting someone. And again, like I've always say, just because you're telling the truth does not mean it's always that time or that place or that scene to uh, voice your opinion or to tell the truth. Sometimes the truth can be held back at a later date or at the proper time it can be voiced. And there's nothing wrong with the truth because we all want to hear the truth. But you have to make sure you learn how to communicate that truth and make sure the truth that you are using is not there to hurt someone but to help someone. And you want to help each other, you want to support each other. And when your wife has an opinion, listen to it. Don't say, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm a man, I know what I'm talking about, you know. No. And when a man is doing something, don't put him down and, oh, my daddy did it this way, how come you can't? No, don't do that. Please don't do that. Don't do any comparisons. Body language is a nonverbal communication technique. Make sure you are listening, nod your head, make sure you say okay. Don't be sitting there rolling your eyes and stuff when they're talking about something, because then the other person gonna start getting louder. Make sure that we are communicating properly. When you communicate, everything can work out, and you can work so many different things out. It's just a matter of communication. Many marriages have been saved by learning how to communicate between the husband and wife. Make sure you listen. And not only that, you listen to your children. Learn to communicate with your children, because sometimes they'll be saying something and you have to notice. If you communicate with your children, you have to notice the things that they're going through. And that way they'll come to you and they'll learn to communicate with you as well. Because when they learn to communicate, then when they get to school, they'll learn to communicate. If they see that you all communicate, if they see mom and dad is communicating, they'll learn to communicate with their siblings. They'll learn to communicate with their teachers. And then when they get into work, out in the working world, they'll learn to communicate on whatever job that they're on. A lot of times people don't advance on jobs because there's a lack of communication. And when you're communicating, the main part or the main formula for communication is listening. When you are a good listener, you tend to be a good communicator. And you don't always have to be right. And sometimes when you're right, it doesn't mean you have to say that you're right. Sometimes you have to let people figure it out for themselves. Sometimes we, especially mothers with their sons, sometimes you have to, you teach them, not try to force them to do things the way you did it. You teach them, and then they learn on their own. And then when they make a mistake or when they fall, they'll be able to communicate with you what happened, because you don't want them to go into not being able to communicate with you. And a lot of families fall apart because people are not speaking to each other because of lack of communication. So you have to communicate with each other, and disagreements can be worked out if you communicate properly. This is Pastor Larry. We're going to be signing off until we meet again. We're going to have some other topics there. We're going to be covering communication a little more. We're going to go into it a little more, but this is a little tidbit what we are talking about with communicating. And make sure that we are communicating with each other. This is Pastor Larry. Until we meet again with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. Now remember that all the music that you hear on the program is from a wonderful app called Whoop Triggers Plus. Is available on the Apple platform as well as the Android platform. And again, the article that we were talking about is from Psych Alive, a psychiatry magazine, or Psych Alive. And the article we were talking about or referencing to was by Sylvia Smith. This is Pastor Larry. Until we meet again with Let's Talk Marriage. All right.